Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm going to give a talk from the 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva today. And this is a list of sort of tips for helping us unleash our full potential and grow our mindfulness and compassion, okay? So this verse is called Giving Up Attachment to Status. Giving Up Attachment to Status. And I'm going to read it to you and then I'm going to comment on it and I'm going to tell a story today. So, giving up attachment to status. As quarreling back and forth in order to gain honor and wealth degenerates the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating, it is the practice of bodhisattvas to give up all attachment to the status of families, friends, and sponsors. I'll read that again. As quarreling back and forth in order to gain honor and wealth degenerates the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating, it is the practice of bodhisattvas to give up all attachment to the status of families, friends, and sponsors. So, learning, reflecting, and meditating, that is the practice. That is really fundamentally what we're doing in order to unleash our full potential, in order to increase our mindfulness and compassion. We shouldn't get attached to things like titles and status. If we think too much about being the number one student or having the best reputation around or whatever, that isn't that helpful to us. We can become obsessed with that and not think about what we really need to do, which is study, learn, reflect, and meditate. That's what we really need to do. It's not about a game of being the best or making everybody think you're the best. It's not that. And I think that's really important. And this sort of reminds me of a story, and that's the story of Shantideva, and I'm going to tell you that story now. Shantideva was a monk, and he lived alongside many other monks, a Buddhist monk in a big monastery, and he developed a kind of reputation. The other monks thought he was lazy. They thought he wasn't trying very hard, that he was just using life in the monastery is an excuse to not go into the world and work and have a job. They thought he didn't really care about the teachings at all and that he was just going through the motions, I'm going to just sit and I'm going to sit around and do nothing. They thought he was lazy. They thought he was the lazy monk. And so because he had this reputation, these monks decided to play a trick on him. And don't let anyone tell you Buddhists are always nice, or even Buddhist monks are always nice. They were jerks, and they set him up for failure by telling the head monk, they said, we think Shantideva should give a teaching. We think Shantideva should give a teaching. They pretended like they really thought that what he would say would be wise. They pretended they thought that, but really they thought he's not even listening to these teachings. He's not even studying anything. He's going to get up there and he's just going to have the biggest failure, and he's going to have to leave because it's going to be so embarrassing. So embarrassing, okay? And Shantideva, he says, yes, I'll give a teaching. He could have said no. Maybe he could have made an excuse and backed out or something, but he didn't do that. He said, yes, I'll give a teaching. So Shantideva goes before all the assembled monks, these people that just judge him and don't like him. He has bad status in the temple. And he goes before all these monks and he says, do you want me to give a teaching you've heard before? Or do you want me to give a brand new teaching? Do you want me to give a teaching that you've heard before? Or do you want me to give a brand new teaching? And the monks, they're surprised because they halfway expected him to just not show up or just get up there and freeze or whatever. And so they did not expect a question. But they sit around and they look at each other and they think, well, what's going to be more embarrassing? And so they say, a brand new teaching. Give us a brand new teaching. And Shantideva did. He gave a talk that has been recorded, and it's called The Way of the Bodhisattva. It's a medium-length text that is just a transcription of the talk he gave. What he did was he blew everyone away. He blew everyone away. The talk he gave is now a text that's really revered through much of Buddhism. They were all blown away by his insight, that he was so much wiser than all of them. And they were speechless. And then, after he gave this amazing talk, he didn't take any questions. He just left. He just was gone. The monastery might have asked him to be a teacher or something because he had demonstrated such great wisdom, but he was gone. And he was never heard from again. He was never heard from again. And at the point of this story, there are several points going on here. One of them is, of course, don't judge people. Don't worry about what someone else is doing or not doing. That's an important lesson. But also, Shantideva didn't care. He didn't care. He had a bad reputation. He didn't care. He wasn't trying to convince people of anything. He didn't care that people thought he was lazy. He was just doing the practice and studying, learning, and meditating, and just doing his best. And he didn't care that these people judged him, talked about him behind his back. I'm sure he knew, but he didn't care. And they tried to put him in a trap, and he still didn't care. He just lived his best life and did what he could do. He didn't care about status, honor, wealth, rewards. He didn't care about any of that. He was just living in the monastery and doing the practice and living his best life. And I want to believe we can learn something from that. I want to believe we can learn something from that. We don't need to, we talk a lot about don't be attached to material things, and I think don't be attached to what people think of you. That might be even harder. We can talk about don't be attached to material things, don't be attached to your youth, don't be attached to your health. This is don't be attached to what people think of you. And it's hard not to get upset if people believe untrue things about you. It's hard. Even though, what they believe often doesn't actually affect us, but it's still hard. We want people to think the best about us, or at least think things that are true, right? And so that can be really hard sometimes. That can be really hard on us. And it's just a reminder that it doesn't matter. Essentially, the things we cling to don't matter. That what we need for our well-being is within us, and the things we're clinging to, the things we bring in to try to make us feel like we're better than other people, they don't help. They don't do that. So, that is it for today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and don't worry so much about honor and status, okay? Have a good day.